To everyone, and thank you all for joining the latest installment in our Workday webinar Thought Leadership series. For those of you that are interested in seeing some of the past webinars that we've done, please visit our website at avap.com. Under the Workday practice there, you'll get access to some of those previous topics, which many of our customers and Workday customers have found very useful. In today's webinar, as Abby was saying, we'll be covering the Workday financial product. We're going to be looking at the new accounting center and period close processing. So a lot of great topics, but by way of introduction, my name is Mark Bonachea. I am the Workday AMS practice lead here at Avap. Essentially my team, the AMS or the Application Management Services team, we're responsible for all of the live Workday customers that Avap currently supports. We've helped close to 30 customers in the past year across a number of different services, including things like update and release management, diagnostic and optimization, enhancement projects, and of course, our day-to-day lifeline support services. Before we get started, let me just give you a quick introduction to Avap as well. So Avap was founded in 2006, and we've got approximately 600 consultants worldwide with offices across North America, EMEA, and Asia Pac. We are considered a Workday boutique partner and have been certified in serving our Workday customers for the last 5 years. And we proudly have all 3 badges with Workday, including being an advisory partner, an AMS partner, and of course, a services and deployment partner. We are certified in all 3 suites of Workday, including HCM, student, and of course, the one that we're going to cover today, financials. Let's take a quick look at today's agenda, and then we'll meet our other presenter, Hannah. So the 3 items that we're going to be, or rather the 2 items that we're going to be covering today, Accounting Center, the new Accounting Center functionality from Workday, and we'll be going through a deep dive on some of the period close processing. We'll also give you a quick demo on some of those processing or some of those processes that are part of the period close. And then we'll finally close out with a Q&A session where you can ask questions of our presenters. So without further ado, Hannah, would you like to go ahead and present yourself?
Yes, thank you so much, Mark, for the introduction. My name is Hannah Ismail. I'm a financials consultant here at AMS. I've been in the Workday ecosystem for a little over 3 years now, and my background is primarily tax and accounting. Today, we will be talking about the Accounting Center, just some important highlights about it. I will be going over the period close process, followed by a short demo on some tasks that I think are beneficial in the period close, and then we will be opening it up for a Q&A at the very end. So my first topic that I would like to talk about is Accounting Center. So just to introduce Accounting Center, what is the Accounting Center? It is a tool which helps the user to gain a better understanding on the accounting detail by providing data that allows to drill back into source transaction. It improves the reporting and the close process. It allows data to be imported from other systems. It's unconstrained and it allows more detail. So in the past, data has been constrained to items like ledger accounts and work tags. It was constrained to do these things. Now, by using the new Accounting Center and Prism, we can bring in data from other systems, including billing systems, claim systems, and premium systems. Just an example, the Accounting Center automatically brings in and transforms data, and it helps the user gain a better insight into the ledger data that is already there. Data can now be transformed efficiently to gain more visibility into the data transformation process. It is a tool that streamlines accounting and helps to reconcile, consolidate, and achieve a more efficient close process. It can run real-time analysis and update forecasts to give users more analytical tools to efficiently use the information, and it provides much more visibility into the finance background of a company at any time. It allows for faster financial insight, automation of data transformation. It streamlines all the accounting into one solution. It provides the user to access a configurable framework. It provides full visibility into the data transformation process, and it also automatically tracks and documents changes and mappings. This is an image from Community. This is one of the examples that Accounting Center is being used for the claims analysis. And as you can see, it is letting us see the claims information by channel, by sales item, by property claims, by claim types and region. We can look at all of these items to kind of understand where we are right now. We can also drill into this claim amount number. And when we do drill into that, we can see that it lets us have the claim metrics by state, what the amount is for each state, and then you can further drill into that and see the status of the claims. You can also see what channel that it was used by. You can see the month by month detail. So pretty much, this is just one example of a system that was pulled into Workday. Different systems can fill the data into Workday at the GL level, but now you can use different tags and different systems and a lot more level of detail to get the information that we need. So the Accounting Center in the past, we'd used Workday for the ledger, but we had different systems that were going on. For now, the accounting system will help us transform this data, and also will help to identify what is moving in the P&L in detail. It also gives us direct information and answers to questions on the types of policies and trends, and the user can use the drill down functionality into financial insights in the same place where the accounting is derived, allowing a streamline of the close process and the reconciliation process. The next topic that I would like to talk about is the period close process. So the period close process has a lot of steps on it, and these are just some of the steps that I have highlighted for the presentation. And before we start the period close process, I would like to talk about what are the benefits of actually doing a true close. When we close the process, when we close the period or a year or a quarter, depending on what the company requires, it gives us the true reporting of the general ledger. It helps us to track and trace the beginning balances, and it also reduces errors in the general ledger and allows for a fresh start for the new fiscal year. So whenever we have problems, let's say in the middle of the year relating to invoices or assets or anything like that, we always want to make sure that the period or the quarter or the year did end properly and those beginning balance did tie out. And that helps to save a lot of error down the road when we're doing reporting of different aspects. So here are some of the period close processes. Update the ledger period statuses, set up period close activity groups, define the rules for processing period, quarter, and year-end close, create and maintain to-dos, create and maintain checklist, create custom business processes. We can configure period close notifications on those business processes, and we can roll forward to the next fiscal year. The first thing that I would like to talk about in the period close process is the changing the status of the ledger period. And I will also show this in my demo as well. So we can update the ledger period status of a single ledger or a single company, or we can do multiple ledgers or multiple companies. We can limit the journal activity as the period close progresses. By using different statuses like close in progress, we can kind of manipulate how we want the journal activity to go in the close process. The tasks that are associated with this are update ledger period status and or mass update ledger period status. We can also choose ledger periods and book codes. Book codes can be used sort of as a filter to help us filter transactions and ledger statuses. We can close specific book codes at a time, and we can also select the new status of the ledger period. One thing to note, the ledger period must be in an open status before we can post transactions to the ledger. Change the status of the ledger period. Workday allows us to have multiple ledger periods open at the same time. So if we are finalizing a ledger period, we can get the next ledger period underway, even if the prior periods are still open. Different ledger periods can have different statuses and close activities. If there is more than one ledger type, corresponding ledger period type and status are usually always in sync. We can also assign the closing ledger status. This status prevents operational journal activity for specific activities. Set up period close activity groups. We can group period close activities together when updating ledger periods. The activity group allows you to close a set of transactions independently rather than the entire ledger for that period. The task that is associated with this is maintain period close activity groups. We can remove the operational transaction types related to previous close activity groups. We can create new period close activity groups and assign them the operational transaction types. When we update the ledger period status to close in progress, we can select the period close activity group in that activity field. And I will talk about that in the demo as well. If the status is close in progress, we cannot delete that activity group, but we can edit the activity group even if the ledger period has a status of being closed. We can review journal statuses, pending transactions, and ledger period history. We can close out the work in progress before updating the ledger period status. We cannot post anything once the period has been closed. The pending operational transactions get posted to the next open period if the current period is closed. Using book codes to close. So book codes, the way I like to think about it is that they can act as a filter during the close process if we want the ledger periods to be closed by certain book codes. This grants us the ability to post to previously closed ledgers without impacting the original ledger. Previous periods can be opened for just one specific book code, and some common examples of book codes that we see are audit adjustments and taxes adjustments. So this chart is here to kind of explain what book codes are. So we are in January 2021, and we have now discovered that back in February 2020, we had an adjustment for 200,000. So in our blank book code, the February 2020 balance was $1 million. So now that we have discovered we have this audit adjustment, we have to apply retroactively. So we can do this by not opening the year, but just opening the specific book code. So our blank book code for February 2020 is $1 million, like how we had it. Now we can open up this new book code called the audit adjustment book code for the negative 200,000 for February 2020. Now when we run the ledger for the blank and the audit adjustment book code, we have a net of 800,000 for February 2020. So just to go back to my previous slide, we use this audit adjustment book code. We use the audit adjustment book code to leverage the Workday functionality to update the period by books. Some more comments on the ledger period status. So Workday updates the ledger year status to closed. After the year is closed, it is no longer available for processing, but remains available for reporting. Workday allows you to have previous ledger years open as you work in the next ledger year. One ledger period can be left open, usually the last, post the adjustments until it is ready to close, until we are ready to close the ledger year. One example is, let's say we open January ledger in late December. We limit the December journal activity by changing the ledger period status. On January 10th, we limit the ledger period to adjustments only. And after all of these adjustments are made and all the periods are closed, in early March, we can close the previous ledger year. This ensures that there are not a lot of transactions that are being posted and that confuse the close process. We also need to define the year-end closing rules, run the ledger period close process, and close all ledger periods to close the year. The next item I wanted to talk about is the close checklist. There's a lot of different ways that different clients like to keep track of the close process. Of course, it's a time that there's a lot of things to do, and there's a lot depending on the company and how their close process goes. Things can get very hectic. So this is a very highly recommended approach from Workday to use the checklist. As I will show this in my demo as well, it helps keeps things very organized. From all the clients that have used it in the past, I've received a lot of positive feedback on it. So that's why I wanted to talk about it here and also show it in the demo, and how important and how easy it is to use this during the close process. So the close checklist is pretty much a checklist that's built into Workday to manage the close process. It is actually a business process, so the steps are incorporated in a business process workflow. The checklist is built into the period close business process. Workday, the checklist also has a feature where the Workday can send notifications to complete the tasks to the assigned worker. Instead of using email, we can use notifications off of the actual business process itself. The checklist helps to analyzes close metrics and send workers additional notifications about a close at any step, anytime. Both the Workday and external tasks can be captured on the checklist. The items on the checklist are in the form of a to-do, and all these multiple to-dos can be consolidated into a Workday checklist. The roll forward process. The first topic of the roll forward process that I would like to talk about is the work tags. So we can optimize the roll forward and configure rules to group the beginning balance only for the work tags that belong to the specific work tag types. Using the configuration rules, we can also reduce the number of beginning balance lines. The task that's associated with this is maintain work tag types for beginning balance journals. When the year-end balances for accounts are rolled forward with the configuration rules, Workday returns only work tag types included in the beginning balance. If for some reason the configuration rule is not set up for the work tag types for a company ledger, then Workday automatically will include all the used work tags when the account is rolled forward. So if we want specific work tags to be used, then we have to go ahead and use the task and tell Workday which work tags we want for it to roll forward. The roll year-end balances forward. Workday allows the user to roll journal balances forward into the beginning balance of the current year before closing the previous year ledgers. This can be done anytime during the close process, and it can also be done multiple times. It can also be done multiple times during the close process. The task that we use is roll forward year-end balance to create or replace the beginning balances. Both the beginning journal balances and the current year journal activity give the latest numbers when reported in the current ledger year. We roll forward the process in mid-January after having changed the status for previous year ledgers to adjustment only. Running the roll forward process in mid-January is an example, and it helps us create a more realistic January balance sheet. And this is assuming, of course, if your year end is December. Workday also allows a roll forward of the translated beginning balances after rolling year-end balances forward. Translated balances. We can complete the roll forward year-end balance to create beginning balance journals. We can also enter the translated beginning balance for amounts for ledger accounts that don't have translated balances. This step, of course, is required if the account has a historic type translation method and that uses historic translation amount with the new combination of company and translation currencies. This is more geared towards multi-currency, but of course, it's an option that Workday offers. These are some tasks that are related to the close process. Of course, these are not all the tasks that we do, but this is just some of them, some of the very basic ones. And then those are the ones that I have also talked about in the presentation. The first one is to maintain period close activity groups. We can update the ledger period status, mass update the ledger period status, roll forward the year-end balance, roll forward the translated year-end balance, year-end closing rules, the business process that has to do with the period close event, start period close, and find the period close. So I will start the demo now. Just give me 1 second while I pull up Workday. Can someone please confirm if they can see my screen?
Yeah. See your screen, Hannah.
Okay. So the first task that I want to talk about is update ledger period status. So we have two tasks here related to this. We have update ledger period status, which we use for one ledger or one company. And we also have mass update ledger period status, which we use for multiple ledgers or multiple companies. So for now, I will be showing the single one. Here we see that we have the company here and the fiscal period that we want to update. And we can also see here that we have the book codes. So this is what I was talking about, that we can use book codes as pretty much a filter to kind of close the ledger activities. So right now, for the purposes of this presentation, I'm just going to pick all, but we can select blank book codes, or if we had a specific book code that we wanted to make the adjustment, we can use book codes in this functionality here. Again, we can use the book codes to leverage the Workday functionality and update the periods by books. So once we hit OK, this is where we can change the status. The most commonly used status, of course, is open. But as you can see, we have one that has adjustments only, where we can only post adjustments to this ledger period. We can have closed, and we can also have close in progress. So for the purposes of this demo, I wanted to show the close in progress. So if we choose close in progress, and the activity we choose here is accounting adjustments, this means that we don't want anyone to make, during the close process, we don't want anyone to make any further accounting adjustments in the tenant. So we can effectively close the accounting adjustments. When we go ahead and click on Create Journal, we will no longer be able to create an adjustment journal because we have disabled it. Now we can use that option for any of the closed activities that we have here. For journals, for inventory expenses, any of them here. One other thing that I would like to show how we can use this is we can do a close in progress for all of these activities, except accounting adjustments. So now I have told Workday that now we can close everything but the accounting adjustments. So if someone during the close process comes to create journal, they can only create an accounting adjustment because we have closed everything else. So they would have to pick this adjustment journal when they create it. They would have to check this box. If you want, if there is a security issue and we don't want anyone to just come here and create these adjustment journals, we can create a custom validation that will limit certain security groups or certain security roles to create these adjustment journal as well. So like I had said in the slides, and just a couple more comments on this, is that we use the ledger, we can kind of use the update ledger period status task to kind of manipulate and open ledgers, but also limit the journal activity as the close progresses. We can close ledger periods, reopen them, have them in a status, use the closed activity group, use statuses, and this will all help us facilitate and stop us from creating certain journals and not creating certain journals, and also help to maintain the closed activity. So the next thing that I would like to talk about is roll forward year-end balances. So when we roll forward the year-end balances, pretty much we are taking the ending balance of a specific year, ledger year, or ledger period, and we are rolling them forward to the other period. We can do this at multiple times during the close. The first thing that we need to do before we roll forward the year-end balances is to actually create the ledger year. So let's say that we are in 2019. Before we run the roll forward, we actually need to create the 2020 ledger year in order to tell Workday that we are rolling forward. So I'm going to go ahead and show that task as well. And I'm going to create a year which I know is not in the tenant yet. So for this company, we have now created 2022 and 2023 academic fiscal year. So now I'm going to run the trial balance, and that is the easiest way to show an example of a roll forward. So after I ran the trial balance, I can see here the trial balance, obviously really short for the demo. There are a couple of, these are the balance sheet accounts that have a beginning balance and an ending balance. Now I'm gonna try to go ahead and roll forward. And the task that we use is roll forward year end. We can schedule to run this now or at a later time. I'm going to pick my company, the fiscal year that I would like to roll forward. And the journal source here, since we are doing the beginning balance, we are going to pick beginning balance over here. So a couple of checkboxes to note. Roll forward translated beginning balance. And if you have historical translated balance, there's a multi-currency. This is when this comes in. If I check this box, it will prompt me for this tab as well. And this is where we can put in our translation rule set and the translation currencies. I'm not going to do that for this presentation. I also want to point out that we have roll forward for the non-controlling interest beginning balances as well. This is if your company obviously has controlling, non-controlling, and intercompany. So we have that option as well. We have an option here for roll forward to up to the current year. So let's say we haven't done the close process in 3 years and we have balances that have been open for the past 3 years and we just want to roll them all forward right now. We can go ahead and click this checkbox. And we also have the book codes here. So this is also another place where we can use the book codes. If we want to roll forward specific balances for specific book codes, we don't want to do the entire year again, or we have an audit adjustment book code that we want to roll forward. We have the tax adjustment book code that we want to roll forward. We can use that filter here as well. Go ahead and hit OK. So depending on how many transactions we have, this will take that much amount of time. We should only have one here. Shouldn't take too long. So the system generated one beginning balance journal, and that is because we had book code. That is because we only had one book code. It usually splits them up by book code. So if we had multiple book codes, it would create multiple journals. Let's go ahead and look at the journal that this created. Okay, so it rolled forward both of my balance sheet accounts, which is cash and retained earnings. So I'm going to do the trial balance again. So as you can see here, it rolled forward those balances, the two balance sheet accounts to beginning balance over here. So this is of course a very small trial balance. For the purposes of the demo, it does prove the point. But of course, if we had a composite trial balance or we had one with different lines, it would be a lot bigger. But it takes the ending balances from the prior year and rolls them forward. So one other task that some other things that I wanted to talk about the roll forward process. Like I said, the create ledger and the ledger periods must be created before we do the roll forward. If we are in 2019, we want to make sure that the 2020 has been created. When we do the final roll forward, the roll forward can be done multiple times during the close process, and it's actually recommended that we do it multiple times so we can get an accurate balance and during the close. But when we do the final roll forward, we want to make sure that all the prior periods are closed, and we do this so that the additional activities do not get booked to the source ledger year, which would make, of course, the balances wrong. One other task that I would like to talk about is the year-end closing rules. So before I rolled forward the year, this year-end closing rule was already set up. So this rule is telling me that the source ledger account is 3,000 retained earnings for the current year. The target ledger account was 3,100 retained earnings for prior year. This rule allows the source to go into the different target account. Anything that is posting to this year will be in the target account for the prior year. So what's used in the current year will now be in the prior year. All the retained earnings journal lines from the source, which are mapped according to the account posting rule, we pull them forward to the target account. If this rule has not been set up, then the system would use the current year retained earnings both as the source and target. So if we want the source and target accounts, we want to make sure this year-end closing rule is set up for the specific account set and the specific companies. The final thing that I would like to talk about in the demo is the close checklist. So this is the close checklist. Pretty much it's a business process. We have multiple business process steps. This one specifically has 32 items. I'm sure everyone has seen this before, but I just kind of wanted to go through different steps. There's initiation, checklist, to do, pretty straightforward activities on the close process. There's a lot of level of detail here. We can look at each step individually. We can look at them as a checklist or to do. A checklist, of course, is just a bunch of to-dos wrapped together. We can see which group does it when it's due. We can send specific notifications to which group needs to do what. There's allowed actions by role, so we can kind of configure this how we want for our company, how we would like this to work for our company, and how we would like for it to go through the close process. So the way we start the checklist is start period close. We pick the company that we want. So over here, we can see that we have a lot of open periods. So let's say I pick December 2020, 2021. So Workday will give me this error if the start period close has already been started. So we can only start the period close for something that's not already been started. Once we started, we have to find that specific period code and go from there. So I'm going to do it for another open period, July. We can pick the period close type we want. I'm just going to do period, and we can specify the expected completion date. Enter a comment. So this will give us all the detail for our checklist. We can send a specific period close notification at any time. It gives us the completion date, the status, the days past due, the number of steps to complete, the total steps. I really like this little graph that it shows the percentage complete. I feel like this comes in very handy. And here we have all the steps. So the first, we initiated the period close event. We have all the steps that are awaiting action. We have to do bank reconciliation, expense reports, supplier invoices. It tells us the step type, the step status, who initiated it, and who it's assigned to. So I just kind of want to show one of these steps. I'm not going to obviously go through all of them, but I did want to go through one of the line items here. So this pending supplier invoice is assigned to this specific worker. So I'm just going to proxy in so I can show what their inbox looks like. So as you can see, when I kicked off the period close checklist, this person got a notification in their inbox to review the pending invoices. So I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. I am going to find my period close checklist. Okay, I'm going to try to do that one more time. I don't think it went through. So as you can see here, the review pending supplier invoice, the status had awaiting action for, and when that person completed the step, it went ahead and hit complete. We can also look at the process history tab and see which step was completed at what time during which person. So the period, it really keeps things organized. It sends notifications to everyone's inbox once things have been done. It kind of helps it facilitates the entire step, and we can also use the period close notification to send a notification to any worker at any time during the close process. So that is all I had